Hey guys, welcome back to another edition of the Long Range Corner with your host, Matt. What have I got for you guys this week? Two things. Two things. Basically, I want to talk about what happens when things go wrong. I was watching a video of one of Nurk's videos where his buddy was flying and he took off and realized that his battery was flat. So he was flying and trying to get back to land. He was flying out over the ocean and ended up ditching the quad. And when he ditched the quad, it basically bounced and landed in, well, he couldn't find it. So he was assuming that it landed in the water. That situation is pretty common. So I'd like to talk a little bit about that. I'd also like to talk a little bit about the use of Reelsteady. And then, of course, answer your questions. So let's jump into this. What to do when things go wrong. I've run into this quite a few times. For example, in Patagonia, I had to put down a quad pretty far away from myself because I couldn't find my way back to where I was flying from. Like I said, Nurk, his buddy, he lost a quad because he ran out of battery. I've had that happen before. So what do you do when that happens? What do you do when something unexpected happens? You can't find yourself. You can't, you don't have battery. What do you do when that happens? Well, number one, I'm a big fan of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And as they say, don't panic. That's the biggest thing is just don't panic. If you lose video or something like that, don't panic. Once you panic, it's over. So you kind of have to keep your head about yourself. In the case of a battery, your battery is not lasting as long as it should. You use more battery than you should have. Look for someplace where you can set it down. So give yourself a target. Say if you're running 4S, say something like 14 volts. When you get down to 14 volts, okay, yeah, it's time to land. I'm going to set it down in the nearest safe spot. And this is crucial. This is crucial. Don't just set it down in the nearest safe spot. Look for landmarks so you can actually find where you put the quad down. That's really important because you want to find the quad again, obviously. So look for a landmark. Look for something that's obvious, a big tree, the top of a mountain, something that will allow you to get that quad. Because, yeah, you should have DVR that should help you work out where you've put it down. But if you don't, or if you don't have video, the battery dies before you can get to it, you don't have a drone keeper, you don't have GPS, worst case scenario, look for a landmark. Look for something that will help you locate the quad. So that's number one tip. Number two tip. If you're lost, the same thing goes. Is you look for a landmark. You look for something that is notable in the terrain that you can use to find the quad again. So battery, lost, both of those landmarks. If you're near a road, maybe that's a good place to set it down. Something like that. So that's what you should do when things go wrong. I'd like to talk about another incident that I had. I was flying and all of a sudden the video just cut out. And, when that happened, I just assumed, oh, okay, I've lost the quad. It's gone. But every once in a while I would get just glimpses of the video. So it wasn't the video transmitter just died. It's like the antenna fell off or something like that. So I was able to use that, and luckily the wind was blowing the quad back to where I was sitting. So it blew it back. I was able to pick up video, and then I was using a landmark. There was a bridge that I could see. So I said, okay, I'm going to try to aim for that bridge. And that's what I tried to do. Unfortunately, the bridge was out of line of sight. But so I quickly lost video from the quad, and that's one of the quads that I lost. Unfortunately, there was not much I could do on that. To recover the quad. Is basically the video cut. I had assumed it was completely gone, but then I picked up the quad on fine mode on the Crossfire. Fortunately, the battery died before I could actually find it, and there's just too much of an area to search. So that's one of the quads I lost. But that's some of the things that you should be thinking about when you're flying. Hey, what's plan B? You're flying along, something goes wrong. What are you going to do? So think about that. Have that in the back of your mind when you're flying. So yeah, that's basically what I wanted to talk about on that. I'm sure you guys have more questions. Let me go check to see if anybody's in there. Yeah, Homegrown Canadian, how you doing? So yeah, get an idea of where you want to set things down. Set your quad down. Set it down with the battery so you know you have enough battery to set it down safely, and that you'll be able to find it again. That's my tip. Number 2, Reelsteady and Stabilization. Yeah, I am more or less ambivalent in the use of Reelsteady. In some aspects, it works. It works well, and I've used it in a couple of my videos, and the video born for this, I used it, and it worked wonders. It actually cleaned up the video enough that it was actually watchable instead of what I had before, which was a lot of vibrations. So that's good. You can overuse it. I'm not a big fan of what Gab does with he in my opinion, overstabilizes it. So you lose a lot of the characteristic movements of the quad. So I really don't like that. It's just not my thing. Zoe, hey, how you doing? Nice to see you here. How have you been doing? We have celebrity in the channel. So yeah, Reelsteady, I like it. But I don't like the overuse of it. I don't like to lose the movement of the quad. I don't like to, it's just a gimbal. No, I don't like that. It doesn't work for me. So I like having a little bit of that. So you can use Reelsteady on really light settings and still retain that movement. However, it doesn't always work. It works best on slow movements. So things that, slow oscillations or slow vibrations, that it works really well on. Really fast vibrations where you have jello in the video, it doesn't work. And believe me, I've got a ton of those videos that I've tried to clean up, and neither Warp nor Reelsteady actually touch it. They just don't do anything to it. So if you got jello, you're kind of screwed. If you have vibrations, if you have movements because of the wind, hey, that you can solve. That Reelsteady works better than Warp, I find. It's not perfect. It's Warp. Let me have a drink. Warp quad is fast. So you can use that really quickly, and it will clean up quite a bit of video. It doesn't work if you've got things close to you. If you're flying close to the ground, it tends to do nasty stuff. It tends to warp the clouds, things like that. There's some settings that you can play with, but it has a tendency to really distort the footage, and I don't like that. Reelsteady works better, but it's still not perfect. Reelsteady is much more computationally expensive. The analysis process of the videos for probably a 10-second video takes about 10 minutes, somewhere around there. And that's just the analysis process. To actually see if there's any problems with the footage, you typically have to pre-render it with After Effects. And that takes forever. So it's a good tool. I've been able to use it to recover some footage that I wanted to recover. I wanted to show you guys, but I can't because it's so bad. The vibrations are so bad. So it's a good tool, but it's not perfect. You're just not going to get the quality all the time. There's been, if you look at Reelsteady stabilized videos, you'll see dancing pixels in some parts. You can see jumps where it shouldn't be jumping. If you've got a lot of fast movement, it doesn't really work well either. So it has limitations as well. So that's kind of the issue of stabilization. Why I like it, being able to recover good footage, and that's ruined by vibrations, and why I don't like it, which is basically the overuse. I think of it as auto-tune for music. If you're familiar with that, it just kind of takes away a little bit of the soul of the flight. So yeah, I don't like that, and I don't like how computationally expensive it is. And there's other problems. For example, it's expensive. The regular price is $400. If you look, I'm going to give you the secret if you want to try Reelsteady. If you look in Google, use the keywords Reddit, educational license, Reelsteady, you'll find an educational license for 50% off. That's what I used to buy it. So I didn't pay full price for it. I paid half price, and I got it that way. However, so you can try it, but it feels a little bit of like abandonware. Like the company hasn't been really responsive in updating it. I haven't noticed any news. I had an issue. I can't use it on the latest version of After Effects. I have to use a previous version of After Effects to actually use it. And that kind of annoys me. And they're not really responsive. They don't really respond to customer inquiries or problems. So that's one of the issues that I have with the software. It's good, but it's not great. It's not $400 worth of great. I'm not even sure it's $200 worth of great. Why don't they allow using logs to make the stabilization work better? That's a good question. You probably could do something with that, but I'm not sure. It'd have to be a custom coded solution, and Reelsteady, I'm sure they don't have the resources to do that. I get the impression that this is a 1 or 2 man shop, so it's kind of impossible. Yeah, a gyro data is perfect. You could gyro data. Well, it's not going to be perfect. There is some noise in the gyro. You're going to have to interpret, figure out exactly what's happening with the gyro. That's one of our problems with the quads. It's not a simple solution. There's always some noise inherent in the gyro, and there's always vibrations from outside, from the props and the motors. So it's not a perfect solution, but it certainly would help to work out where the camera is oriented in space and help stabilize. If the gyro was perfect, you wouldn't need the stabilization software, simply, to remove the vibrations, because you wouldn't have vibrations. So yeah, it's not going to be perfect. It's going to help, but yeah. So that's my feelings on Reelsteady. Prominent guys that use it. I know Gab uses it. I've talked to Johnny. I had assumed Johnny has used it, but he says he doesn't. He swears he doesn't. What can I say? If he doesn't, that's awesome, because his video is so smooth. But there's other guys that use it, and they get pretty good results with it. Yeah, so that's basically what I had. Those are the 2 topics that I had. As for news, I don't have much. I haven't really been doing much in terms of quads recently. Been working in a university. It's end of term, so I'm busily grading everything that needs to get graded before term ends next Friday. I have to have the grades in, so yeah, I've been busy with that. But I have been working on a end of year compilation, and that's kind of one of the reasons why I'm talking about Reelsteady, is because I've been fighting with that. I wanted to get the compilation in for there's a contest on AirViews. You can win $1,000 for the best FPV video, and I really wanted to get the video in for that, but it ended yesterday at midnight, and I just wasn't ready. I couldn't. The Reelsteady didn't work as well as I wanted it to. It had some errors, and I didn't want to submit it like that. So yeah, that's some of the issues. That was it. That just didn't work. So let me see if I can actually paste that. I've got a preliminary video out there, so the guys in chat can see it. Let me get that for you. And hopefully I can paste it. What's the most expensive loss that you've had in long range? That would probably be the quad that I lost in the lake. That was an X24. It had a Flying Cinema X24 that had the Rotor Geek 2350, 2206, 2350 kV motors on it. It had a TBS GPS. It had TBS Core, PNB Pro, obviously. It had a 2.4 gigahertz system, and had all KISS. So KISS flight controller and KISS ESCs, and this GoPro Session 5. So probably around $1,000 right there, lost in the lake. That's the most expensive loss I've had. I've had other ones. I've lost an Alien, and I've lost another X24. The X24 that I lost in the mountains, that was with the Session 4. I had to change out the Session 5 because I didn't want to lose it, thankfully. The GoPro, or the Alien 6 that I had, I left in Hawaii with Zoe. Zoe was there. Yeah, you get over it. Crying, it doesn't help much. It's expensive and it hurts, but it's not like I'm not going to do it. Let me see if I can paste this video. Oh, I grabbed the edit. Yeah. Yeah, hopefully that URL came through. So that's a preliminary version of my end of year compilation if you want to check that out. Like I said, it's still pretty preliminary. There's some issues with the footage, but you can see issues where Reelsteady screws up when it doesn't do what it should do. Yeah, so. Yeah, I do fly. Well, I flew more previously. Now I don't fly very much. So I've lost 5 quads, I think. So 5 quads, probably about, oh, I don't want to do the math. Let's not do the math. Strong looking coffee. It is strong looking coffee. It's a very, very, very strong looking coffee. That would be an Indian Pale coffee. Fuller's Indian Pale coffee. So yeah, I don't want to total up how much I've lost. That would depress me. So we won't do that. So any questions for me? What have you guys been up to? Artisan Chilean coffee? No, unfortunately, it's I think it's British coffee, if I recall correctly. Fuller's is a British company. I think it's brewed in London, which makes me worried about my health. But yeah, I think Fuller's is definitely, yeah, brewed beside the Thames since 1845. So there you go. Artisan English coffee. Yeah, editing, especially with Reelsteady, it takes a while. Usually I can knock out a video in a couple hours if it doesn't require too much editing, too much stabilization, but quick and dirty way of uploading with just okay stabilization. Like I said before, that would be Warp. Warp works pretty well, and it's fast. It's fast enough. Ideally, you wouldn't use the stabilization. You just do it straight out of the camera. The in-camera stabilization of the GoPro 5, the Session 5, don't use it. It screws with the footage. Make sure it's off. I think they come with it on default, and it just doesn't work very well. I can tell you that from experience. I have a couple of videos from when I went up to the Atacama, up to Nevado Tres Cruces. There, I filmed in 4K for some flights, and the footage was fine. But once I switched it to, I think it was 2K or 1080p, it screwed up the footage because the stabilization turned on the 1080p and it was off for 4K. So don't use it. It just doesn't work. Yeah, Premiere Warp stabilization works pretty decent. It does a job, as long as you're not flying anywhere close to anything. If you there's a couple options that you can play with. I think one of them is subspace subpixel filtering or something like that. Basically, it tries to convolute the image, and that ends up looking rather bad. But if you use just limit, like horizontal and vertical movements, that will tend to look a little bit better and leave you with less weird artifacts, less trippy artifacts in the stabilization. And then you can turn the effect of the stabilization down as well. That will help. Do I always use circular polarized antennas for video? Yeah, pretty much always. It's just basically that's the basic. I would like to try the linear polarized, but I don't have a directional for that. So all my directional antennas are circular polarized. So typically I'll just use circular polarized. Saludos a ti, Oscar. At some point, I'm going to have to do one of these in Spanish. Tengo muchos suscriptores que hablan español y no hablan mucho inglés. Entonces, debería hacer uno en español, pero my Spanish isn't all that great. Yeah, I've seen some new cameras coming out. I'm excited for the future. Right now, I just don't have the money. I've just plunked down a bunch of cash on a RAID network access storage system because one of my hard drives went bad in my computer, and that had my music on it. I was able to recover most of the music, but that left me quite scared. I've got so much footage from the last 3 years of flying. I pretty much have all of my footage from the last 3 years, and I really don't want to lose that. So I decided, yeah, I'm going to get a RAID system and get some data backup. So I've got that coming in, and that's going to eat that eats up my disposable income for a couple months. So hi Quebec, how you guys doing? Winter weather change the flight time or the way the craft flies. Yes, it does. Actually, not a lot of people have mentioned that. One of my friends, Gons, mentioned that previously. Not a lot of people have talked about that. But cold weather is really bad for lithium polymer batteries. So basically what happens when your batteries are cold, the internal resistance is much higher than if they're warm. If you have cold batteries, that will cause more voltage sag. That will cause, it will cause your batteries to puff faster because you're trying to pull a lot of current out of those batteries and it just can't give it. So it tends to rise, the internal temperature tends to rise, or the internal resistance tends to rise, and the temperature starts to rise. So you really want to warm your batteries up before you fly in the winter. Otherwise, you're going to you're going to do damage to them. Yeah, RAID sucks. Modern data science is not backup. Yeah, depends. If you're talking RAID 1, obviously that's a mirror. RAID 5, that's a little bit. It does have its risks. Basically, what happens? RAID 5 is actually pretty decent, unless you have 2 drives go bad. If you have 2 drives go bad, you're screwed. It can recover up to 1 drive. You can do RAID 6, and I think that can do 2 drives because it's got 2 parity bits. But the problem with RAID is you have more drives. More drives means more chance of failure, and that's basically it. As for other backup solutions, if anybody has a better backup solution, I'm all ears, because one of the problems is that to get enough space to back up anything big, it's hard. I probably have at least 2 terabytes of videos right now. So I don't know of a better way to back them up other than, or to keep them relatively safe other than RAID. There's nothing I can buy that will give me 2 terabytes of storage. Yeah, I could compress them. Yeah, I could throw away some of the stuff that I don't want. But yeah, I'm a pack rat. I don't like to do that. Maybe it'll come in useful. Do I still fly the Cinetank airframes? Not as much as I should. As you can see, I've got one hanging up on the wall there. I don't fly it very much. It's a gimbal quad, and with a Mavic that works. I'm sad to say that works better than the Cinetank. Has less vibrations, less problems. It's more portable. So yeah, I don't fly it as much as I should. I just actually started thinking about rebuilding my QAV 540. That's the one down here behind me. And doing that all KISS and seeing if I can get some good video out of that. That would be an interesting longer range quad. But yeah. Reconstruction eats into the meantime between failure, obviously. So we're talking about RAID. If you buy all your drives at once, then yeah, you're actually, once one of the drives fails, you're probably going to lose another drive pretty quickly because you're talking meantime between failure. So there's that issue. If you buy drives staggered, then it shouldn't be that much of an issue. My plan is probably these drives are going to last a year or two before I change them out with larger drives. The network access storage, the NAS that I'm buying, actually has a hybrid mode, so you can more or less upgrade it on the fly. Not really, but you can do some things there. So yeah, I've thought about it. I've thought about how I'm going to handle data storage. Basically, if I keep upgrading drives, I should be able to keep the data more or less safe. Do I use KISS FCs exclusively? No, not exclusively. Just I do have one. The Cinetank actually is with Pixhawk. So no, not exclusively. Yeah, I do have a Betaflight. A Calibri right here. Got that for my G2. I got another G2 that I'm building out for testing purposes. So yeah, I've got a Betaflight Calibri right here. You can see. So not exclusively, almost exclusively. Right. Any other questions? Still got beer left, so I'm still answering questions. This is a half-liter beer, so I got more beer than last time. Yeah, mirror on 10 terabyte Iron Wolves would be a good idea. I'm talking about MTFB, mean time between failure. Where is my Christmas tree? Not here. Not in my office. This is a spare bedroom of my house, so it's now my office. I do have one plant here. Let me give you a little tour. Yeah, so there you go. There's one plant. It's not really a Christmas tree. Do I have a place that I always revisit? Yeah, I typically fly up in the mountains. There's, oops, a little bit off kilter there. Yeah. There's a place called Paso Pinchy that's it's pretty easy access. It's about 2 hours from here, 2.5 hours, and there's tons of places to fly there. So I typically go up. I tend not to revisit it too much. I think I'm going to be doing some more flying around the valleys and the coasts now. I kind of been exclusively flying in the mountains for quite some time. I want to do something different. I want to break it up and not lose the passion. So any way to keep carbon fiber from snapping in the cold? Oh, actually, I've never had that problem, to be honest. The places where I fly just doesn't really get that cold. The coldest I've flown in is probably around 0 degrees Celsius, 32 degrees Fahrenheit. If most of the time I'm flying around 10 degrees upwards, 10 degrees Celsius upwards, so about 52 degrees Fahrenheit upwards. So I don't really have that problem. A little more organized than Bruce. Yeah, my office looks a little more organized than Bruce Simpson's workbench. Just slightly, not really. It's organized chaos. Yeah, I have stuff all over the place. I think you can, if I point you here, you'll see all of my various crap here. I try to keep it organized, but it's hard. It is impossible. Horizon mode for long range. No. Acro for long range. Basically, I don't like horizon mode because you're always fighting mistakes, and it leads to worse video. So you'll tend to get bobbles and things like that. Reelsteady does defish. Do you use any other field of view or wide GoPro defished? I use mainly wide GoPro, and yeah, I do defish it. I use defish it with Reelsteady. And normal footage, no. I'll just leave it wide. I don't like super view very much. Super view seems strange to me. It tends to compress mountains and make them look smaller than what they really are, and I don't like that. So I don't use super view. I pretty much film exclusively in wide. Recently, I've been filming in 1440 and then just cropping the top and bottom, and that works well. I like that. What I don't like is the flat color on GoPro. I have a really hard time getting the color back out of that. Some of my videos, you've noticed that they feel a little bit orange. The green, the greens tend to be very muted, and I don't like that. I've tried a lot of it. I'm still working on my process. I'm still learning on how to get the best out of the footage. Maybe once I get a little bit more knowledge, I'll be able to do that. But the LUTs that I've tried, everything that I've tried really hasn't really worked to my satisfaction. So yeah, I've been working on that. I've been working on trying to get something decent out of the process. What does my t-shirt say? It says, let's see if I can do it. It says, interesting. Capable of holding one's attention. Arousing a feeling of interest. Oh God, we're all going to die. I'm not sure if you catch that reference. Maybe some of you will. I'll give you a hint. It's let's see, somewhere in between Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Castle. How about that? Yeah, somebody got it. Rumpelstiltskin got it. Firefly. Yeah, so that's one of my favorite flying t-shirts. It's shown up in a video or two, so. I got a ton of odd geeky t-shirts, so. What can I say? I'm a geek. I'm a computer geek at heart, and the FPV flyer second. Yeah, that's my problem with the flat color scheme. It's just hard to get the color out of it. I've gone back to the GoPro Color scheme, and that's worked a little bit better. I don't like. I may even go back to the GoPro Color because it's just easier, and I don't have to do as much work. I don't have to do as much fussing, and I can get the videos out quicker, and I'm happier with it. Yeah, brown is pretty much the norm here in the south as well. I've got Alan Main here. He's a flyer in the north of Chile. He's up in Antofagasta, if I remember correctly. And they're basically a desert, the Atacama. He does some good stuff. He's, what's your channel, Alan? I know you've posted a lot under Alan Main and Flying Kiwis, if I remember correctly. Alan is a flyer from New Zealand, living in Chile. Us gringos tend to congregate for some reason. I'm not sure why. Right. Well, I'm almost done with my beer. If you guys got no more questions. 433. No. I used 433 at the start. I actually used Easy UHF for a while. I've got one video using the S-Bus modification for the Easy UHF. But I quickly abandoned that as I had some really nasty fail-safes pretty close in. So after that, I just didn't trust it. I said I'm not going to send my quad far away if I have to go retrieve it. No. So no, I did use 1.3 or 433, but not anymore. I think there's some equipment in the mountains that kind of affects it. So I just used a Crossfire now. I'm comfortable with it. And 1.3, no. As I explained in a couple other videos, basically, when I was looking at long range, 2.4 had the antenna size that I wanted. It was acceptable. And 1.3 was rather large. So I bought into the 2.4 system, and basically I just stuck with that. Good question. For your next goals at 7,000 meters, how do you expect to overcome the main enemies of batteries? The cold and the air's rarefication, the decrease in pressure of the air, the decreased lift, and increased consumption. That's the batteries. I'm going to wrap them in, basically I've got a little bit of foam packing material, and I'm going to wrap them in that. So that's really light, and it should at least keep them a little bit warm. That's for the batteries. You don't need a lot of that, but basically once you get going, then the battery's consumption will actually keep it warm inside. You just need to keep the wind off of it. So that's my plan for the cold. For the increased consumption, I'm going to use probably increased kV motors. So instead of using the TBS endurance motors that I've got, the 1450 kV motors and 7-inch props, I'm probably going to pump it up to 1960 kV motors and stick with the 7-inch props. And that should give me the thrust I need to make it to the top of that mountain. So that's the plan. The RX that I use is, no, it's a, oh, I've got it back here. The 2.4 RX that I use is an Immersion RC Duo 2400. That is the version 3. I actually was waiting for that for a long time before it came out. And it works pretty decently. You really have to be careful with the impedance on the antennas. It doesn't always switch properly if the impedance is too far off. I've had that happen before when I'm using an extension on the Omni. It just doesn't switch from the crosshair. So that's one of the issues that I've had with this. But as long as you're aware of that, it works really well. I think the sensitivity is about 90 dBi, somewhere around there. If I also have the Uno 2400. That's a little bit more sensitive. That gets up to about 92 dBi. They said this is the filtered one. There's an unfiltered one that will get up to, I think, 95 dBi. But the filtering, you need that to prevent reception of unwanted, your transmitter reception. So as long as you're sitting far away from this, it should work fine. eCalc, I have used eCalc before. My problem is a lot of the eCalc. Yeah, switching into Spanish mode. eCalc.ch. That's a really good tool. Problem is they don't have a lot of the mini quad motors. They don't have the TBS endurance motors, for example. I've kind of guessed on those. When I build out larger quads, for example, I build out octocopters for work, and then I use eCalc a lot. But most of the time I use Experience. Calculate, yeah. How do you calculate MAH, milliamp hour, or hours, milliamp hours, or altitude travels? Altitude travels, basically I can guess that from the elevation maps in Google, or the TBS with the GPS will give that to you right on screen on the OSD. And that's the same time. That's the same with the milliamp hours. I pretty much use the TBS core system exclusively. I have, if I'm using 2.4, I'll use the if I'm using 2.4, I'll use the TBS core PNP Pro. Or if I'm using 5.8, I'll use the TBS FP Vision. Both of those have the same capacity, and they'll calculate the milliamp hours used. So I like that. You can use the TBS GPS to get watts per distance or milliamp hour per distance, or whatever you want, basically. So they've got a bunch of options there. Right. Okay. Well, guys, my beer is finished. I hope you guys have enjoyed this, and I enjoyed having a good. I enjoyed talking with you guys, and I must say, I really have to thank all of you guys, all of my subscribers. I know I haven't done that. I picked up quite a few subscribers recently, and I really appreciate your support. And I enjoy doing this. I hope my enthusiasm comes across for you guys. And so, cheers to you guys, and we'll see you probably next Saturday. Bye for now.